guys. All right, so check this out, right? Let's give it a sec. Pretty cool, right? So I have 3 Einstein lights, and I can control them through this device known as a Cyber Commander. Einstein lights are made by a company called Paul C. Buff, and that's mostly what I use in my studio for portrait work. Anyway, I wanted to quickly walk you through this particular lighting setup, and then talk about, you know, the camera, the lens, in other words, gear. But I want to do it quickly because the gear doesn't matter that much. Honestly, it really doesn't. So this is my main light. It's got a parabolic umbrella with diffusion material on it. This is Einstein number 1. And then if we go this way, I have a strip bank here. And the strip bank gives me a little bit of rim light. And then right there, I've got this is usually a hair light. It's usually up much higher. Okay, so that's kind of it for the lights. All right, so I command all 3 with this Cyber Commander, it's called. Okay, so now I'm going to go to all, and I'm going to turn off my modeling lights. Boom, boom, boom. All right, they're all off, as you can now see. Right now, that's off. Okay, so anyway, this is a pretty cool little gadget here. Makes my life very easy. Anyway, so that's kind of it for the lights. Pretty boring, actually. Who cares? Okay, guys, so this is my go-to setup for portraits, and basically this is the 70-200 f4 L lens by Canon. For the stuff I do in my studio here, I'm at f11, so I really don't need f2.8. And when I'm like doing a ambient plus flash shoot outside or something, f4 is good enough. If I want a soft background, I'm going to be shooting at 200mm, which is also going to make the background go soft. So there's several things that affect depth of field, not just the f-stop number. So f2.8 is going to give me another stop of light, but I didn't think it was worth spending the extra money. This lens is such a great lens. It's super sharp, and the thing is, it focuses like that. It's incredible how fast this thing focuses. Now, it's a stabilized lens. I like to shoot handheld. I don't like to put my camera on a tripod, even in my studio. But for those times that I am doing ambient plus flash, yeah, it's good to have a stabilized lens. So I was willing to spend the extra money to get stabilization. I think if you're going to have a telephoto lens that you're going to use handheld, you have to have stabilization. If I'm shooting at 200mm, motion is exaggerated so much, stabilizers really help, I have to say. So this is my favorite portrait lens for all those reasons. Okay, it's tack sharp, focuses instantly, it gets out of the way so I can concentrate on the job at hand, which I'll talk about in a second. But I want to show you another lens. Okay, so this is the Canon 85mm f1.8. So this is a great natural light lens because it opens up to f1.8. It's a prime lens. It's long enough, you know, focal length wise, so it's great for portraits. It's also a very tack sharp lens. And the great thing about this lens is it's a little over $300, whereas that 70-200 is well over $1,000. I can't remember exactly what I paid for it. Somewhere in the neighborhood of $1,500, maybe a little less, not sure. So this is a great lens. Between this lens and the 70-200, I'm covered. So these are my 2 favorite portrait lenses. All right, and then I'm using the Canon 6D Mark II. It's full frame camera, and it's a great all-around camera. I use it for making video as well because it's got a flip-out screen. And oh, by the way, I should point out that I do tether this to my computer running Lightroom. So when I'm shooting in my studio, I can see on a big screen. I can check focus, all kinds of stuff. So I usually shoot tethered, and with the latest version of Lightroom, they finally got the tethering together so pictures come up much quicker than they ever did before when I'm tethering. So thank you, Adobe, for finally getting decently fast transfer through Tether. That's with a cable, by the way, USB cable. Wi-Fi, forget it. I'm shooting RAW. It takes way too long for files to transfer over Wi-Fi. Oh, I did forget to mention one thing. When the client that I just shot came over, that's who the setup was for, it was clear that he needed to be shot on a white background. So I used paper, and it's not actually pure white. It's kind of an off-white. So in order to get that to go white and to get it bright enough, because I had him standing about 6 feet in front of the backdrop, so with the white background, it's actually, because of my light positioning, was going to just go gray. As a matter of fact, it did go gray. I'll show you one of the shots. So I set up a little light stand behind him and put a speed light on it, set to slave mode, shot it 1/2 power, and aimed it directly at the white piece of paper. And that made it, basically blew it out. It was like totally overexposed, but that was fine. As long as it wasn't so bright that I was getting all kinds of ridiculous light spill into the scene, it was fine. So, yeah, I mean, that was kind of I had to very quickly change my setup from a black background to a white background, and that was the easiest way to do it. Okay, and that's really about it for the gear. The rest of this whole thing, in terms of shooting portraits, is really the most important, and that is the psychology about it. So you have to develop a relationship with a client. Now, understand that 90% of the portraits I do, I've never met the person before. We've spoken on the phone, but I've never actually met them face to face. So they don't know me, I don't know them. Somehow I have to make them feel comfortable in this studio space with me. They have to trust me. Now, I get a lot of referrals, which is great. So, recommendations are always the best type of marketing. And so they have fairly high expectations to begin with, but nonetheless, they still don't know me. And it's important that I get them to be at ease with me as quickly as possible. So my advice would be, if you're in that situation, ask them about themselves. People love to talk about themselves. So before you start shooting, maybe sit down, have a little 5-minute conversation. You have kids or do you have pets, whatever it is. I'm trying to find something to get them to, to draw them out. And also, my dog Molly, she's not here right now, but she's downstairs. She's a very outgoing, friendly dog, and she's always here with me. She definitely puts everybody at ease because she's just such a happy, friendly dog. So that's kind of my secret weapon. But here's the thing. The whole point of developing a rapport is to get the client to relax in front of the camera, but also, look, people aren't really attractive because of their physical appearance. Well, all right, that's bullshit. Yes, some people are just gorgeous people. The whole idea is to get that emotional attractiveness. That's really your job as a portrait photographer, to try and capture that emotional attractiveness that everybody has, regardless of their physical attributes. So I don't mean to say that physical attributes don't make a person attractive or unattractive, but that's not actually nearly as important as the emotional attraction that people convey. I mean, if you like somebody, it's because of their emotional attraction, not because of their physical appearance, right? And here's an interesting little side note. I've had women who I thought were just stunningly gorgeous here, and yet they think they're ugly. It's incredible to me. Now, I'm not a psychologist. I have no idea how to change that. I would think some therapy might help, but that's not my job. My job is to, during the short time that they're here, to try and get the best out of them. So I get this a lot. People will call me up and they'll say during the course of our initial phone conversation, I hate the way I look. That's where I have to start. Okay, you hate the way you look, and yet you want me to photograph you. So we're really starting at the bottom here. So somehow I have to bring that up. I have to bring out their best. And they don't understand that emotional attractiveness is way more important than physical attractiveness. But I do. So, I mean, I try and get them to stop thinking about the way they look if at all possible. I'm trying to distract them. I'm trying to get them to not think that they're getting their picture taken, which is incredibly difficult because they are, and they're standing in front of a camera or sitting, whatever the case may be. So the thing about being a portrait photographer, the psychology of it is way more of a challenge than any kind of, gear or technical stuff. I'm not saying like there isn't some skill to it, because of course there is. But so you can pretty much use any camera, any lens, and get a decent result within reason. I mean, you're not going to shoot a headshot with a 16 millimeter focal length, because that would be ridiculous. You're going to be like 10 inches from their face, and their nose is going to be huge, and it's going to look really weird. Now, that could be sort of a humorous shot. I'm not saying never shoot a portrait at a wide angle, but it's certainly not like a headshot for a business card. So, all right, I think I pretty much beat that to death, right? All right, so now I'm going to show you some images that I shot with this lighting setup right out of camera, and then I'll show you some of the post-production stuff I use. For this person, I didn't need to go into Photoshop for anything. I try and do everything if possible in Lightroom, because Lightroom has some pretty good retouching tools. I'm talking mostly about the spot removal brush and the adjustment brush. Those are the only two tools in Lightroom that actually would be considered retouching tools. If it comes to something like thinning out a face or anything changing the physical proportions of a person, then I need to do that in Photoshop. But if it's just like getting rid of blemishes and minimizing aging lines, like look at my neck, right? I can make my neck look a lot younger in Lightroom without having to go into Photoshop. That kind of stuff. And besides, getting back to lighting, one thing I will say about lights, they tend to really overemphasize blemishes and lines and creases in the skin and texture in general. And today's cameras and lenses pick up an incredible amount of detail. Really, too much, some might say. So my post-production retouching goal is to minimize the over-exaggerated stuff that happens with the camera. I don't like changing a person's appearance. If it's the face got a little wider because I shot at 200 mil, that's one thing. But to make them look, say, 30 pounds lighter, no, I won't do that. I shouldn't say I won't. I've done it. Oh, I've done it. The person I shot, whose picture I'm going to show you, there was really a minimum amount of retouching. I just want to give you a sense of what you can do in Lightroom, and none of it involved altering any kind of physical appearance. So, all right, let's check out Lightroom. Okay, so here was the first shot where I threw a speed light up to get that background to go white. I just wanted to show you that it did a great job of that. I don't like this shot. This is not a good portrait. He looks a little uptight. The smile feels kind of forced, and we don't have a very strong jawline. For those of you that have watched Peter Hurley's excellent advice on posing, he tells you to have the client position his head such that the jawline is much stronger, and I'll show you that in the next one. So here was the one we wound up with, cutting right to the chase. Notice his chin is down now, creating that strong jawline. His head is coming forward. So yeah, check out Peter Hurley's videos on that. Now, here's the before, here's the after. So I brightened this part of his face because of the way I had my main or key light position. If you look in his eye, you can see that there is that parabolic umbrella with diffusion material. I felt the shadow side was a little too dark. The strip bank was lighting just along, creating nice rim light. I really love that there. But this area here, even though I did have a reflector that was bouncing light back on, it did open up the shadows a bit, but not enough. So I used a radial filter and here it is, and I increased my exposure by a little more than half a stop. That opened up that side of the face quite nicely. I had a feather of about 50%, so you can see there is how it worked. And then the only other thing I did was I used the spotting brush. The opacity was less than 50%, and all I was doing was basically minimizing the lines under his eyes, right? So here's the before, here's the after. I just minimized the lines under his eyes. I didn't want to get rid of them. That would have been kind of ridiculous. And that was it. In general, he was really a great client. He was, a very friendly, open guy, and didn't take long for us to get a good result. I would say he was with me for maybe actual shooting time, 15, 20 minutes. All right, so I think we're done here. Hopefully you guys found all this helpful. I tried to give you a very brief overview of the gear and my process and, the Lightroom stuff. I want to end by saying that every situation is different. You can't really just go by one shoot, one portrait. People have different features. Women get lit differently than men. I don't usually, I light them a little more straight on as opposed to having the key light off to the side the way I did. You have to kind of take each situation individually. Anyway, all right, we're done. See you guys in the next one. Bye.